And we are live. Welcome to the show. Welcome to this live stream, this gold standard live stream. It's the first one that I've done for a couple of days on, or maybe a week or so actually, on my channel. But I thought it would be timely just to come on and just have a chat, really. I haven't really planned this out too much, to be completely honest. So I'm just going to talk about a few things. And then if you've got questions that you want to ask, or you've got sort of topics that you want me to cover, then we'll certainly get into those as we go forward through this. But yeah, this is a strange time for sure. You find me here in my London abode, locked down. We've been locked down now by Boris Johnson. We're not allowed to leave the house for 3 weeks. That's not strictly true, actually. You can leave the house or the apartment in order to go and buy groceries, medical supplies. You can go out once a day for exercise as well. So I don't know about you guys, but I am missing the gym very much. It's here in the UK, the gyms have been asked to close down. So obviously you've got home exercise. This is a coffee, by the way, having a coffee and discussing COVID and various other things, conspiracies. We can get to those in a little bit. It's quite nice, actually, quite a dark, rich roast. But yeah, so I don't know how many people watching this are from London or indeed from Europe, but I can just give you a little bit of an update on what's happening here. So as I was saying, so in the UK, Boris Johnson, Irishman Bateman, any restrictions on dicking them down? I don't believe those restrictions have been made, but there is a restriction on threesomes, and I'll tell you why. Because the government has said in the UK that you can't have a gathering of more than 2 people. So sex is okay because you can have a gathering of 2 people, but threesomes are not okay because you can't have a gathering of 2+ people. You can't have a gathering of 3 people. So unfortunately, threesomes are out at the moment, but hopefully we will see them reinstated in a short period of time. So what's happening at the moment is we're locked down. You can go out for exercise, which is good, because what I was coming around to saying is I'm going to start doing a bit of running. I think not start doing it. I mean, I've always done running, but I'm going to get back into a bit of running for the time being, because I think it's really important to get out and to get some exercise. The thing is, like, cardiovascular gets kind of slated a little bit in the space. People don't want to talk about cardio because it's all about weights and it's all about, doing squats, and it's all about, like, all the rest of it. And that's absolutely fine. I mean, I love weights. I think it's really important to do that. But cardio is really good. And I'll tell you why. It just mentally, it just fills you up with such incredible sort of like a sense of well-being, a sense of being at one with the world. It's a really meditative process, I find, to go out running. It just puts me in a great space mentally. So I'm going to get bang on with the running in this period of time, unless we get locked down even further, and then we're not even allowed to do that. But at the moment, we are. I would hope that continues. So yeah, I mean, it's a strange state of affairs, and you can't even really go anywhere, because I was looking at some flights earlier just to check up on a few bits and pieces, and even to go to Europe, there aren't that many direct flights leaving London to go to mainland Europe. So, yeah, Daygate, as Irishman Bateman says here, cardio is essential, dopamine receptors firing on all cylinders. And the other thing about this is, actually, I was in a webinar yesterday with John, Modern Life Dating, and we had a dude on who was talking about erectile dysfunction. He was talking about the fact that his boner, his pecker, wasn't quite working in the way that he wanted all of the time. And one of the suggestions that was made, I think actually by John, was that cardio is really good for that, because it gets the blood flow going. And of course, as we know, in order to get a firm erection is, you need to have that blood flow running. And that's what, obviously, Viagra works on the blood flow in order to create, that firm erection. Don't know why I've gone down that tangent, but I hope that's helpful for you guys. So yeah, running is awesome. Most tranquil I've been in my life is when I was running 4 to 5 kilometers per week. Back at that number now. Yes, absolutely. I mean, I hope to be hitting that. I mean, I think I'll probably get into daily running. I've been a little bit under the weather over the last sort of few weeks, so I haven't been doing as much as I normally do of any type of exercise, really. But I want to get out there and hit the running, because Man, I mean, this is a tricky period, isn't it, right? And I'm sure you guys are feeling this as well. I don't know whereabouts you are, anybody who's watching this, in terms of if you're in Europe, if you're in the UK or whatever, but it just seems like globally at the moment, we're all sort of in this lockdown type scenario. I read earlier that in India, they are looking at locking down the whole country. So that's 1.3 billion people, and they're going to lock down the entire country. And apparently, I'm told they can't even go out for groceries. So, you know, in a country like Britain, which has got 60 million people, the fact that we're still allowed to go out and go to the supermarket and stuff is kind of okay. I mean, for me personally, I guess it's not that bad because, I mean, you know, most of the work that I do in terms of creating content and stuff, you know, I'm sitting around at home anyway. I don't actually need to go out. If anything, it's going to focus me more, right? It's going to force me to do the work that I, you know, that maybe some bits of work that I've been putting off. It's going to allow me this opportunity to go into a deep dive. And I think going into what you might call monk mode, or people in this space talk about as monk mode, I think is a really, really good use of anybody's time at the moment. Because people have been talking to me about dating, the dating scene and stuff, and you get guys saying, okay, so look, so what do I, you know, there's a problem at the moment in terms of dates. You know, even if I hit up girls on Tinder and they're responding favorably, how do I get them to get out on dates? What are the tricks? What are the top 10 hacks, you know, to get a girl out on a date during the coronavirus pandemic? And I'm like, dude, I don't know. This is unprecedented. You know, if everywhere's closed, if all of the coffee shops and bars and restaurants in your city are closed, there isn't a hack that's going to get you around that. There isn't like some amazing like pickup artist trick that's going to sort of like get you through that. Of course, the only things that you can do are get her to come to your place. So, you know, you've now got a really good inbuilt excuse to say to somebody that you're chatting to, well, look, do you want you come over to mine and watch some Netflix or whatever? Because, you know, if there's nowhere else to meet, what are you going to do? So that's a good option. If she's not going to do that, then, you know, maybe depending on the restrictions where you are, you could like go for a walk in the park. You could, I don't know, you could even meet a coffee and go and meet her somewhere, have a little like, you know, quasi picnic type thing if it's warm enough. Take her for a walk by the lake or whatever, you know, whatever it is in your city. You know, there's all of those sort of outdoorsy things you can do, which I suppose you could still even more or less get away with in London, actually, because you would only be in a group of two. So that would be legal. But I mean, it depends really on the circumstances in your particular area, what the restrictions are. But look, anyway, the long and the short of it is, there isn't just some magical trick that's going to make you a babe magnet in this period of unprecedented, you know, government intervention into our liberties. And this is what's happening in Britain at the moment. I mean, yeah, very nice. This is what's happening in Britain at the moment. They're saying that this is, you know, one of the biggest incursions on our democratic and social liberties that's probably ever existed outside of wartime. Now, you know, look, I mean, obviously there's very, very good reason for it, and nobody's disputing that. And I think if you watch Boris Johnson yesterday doing his speech or his address announcing these measures, I don't think he's particularly keen on this stuff. I don't think he really wanted to do it, and he recognized that he kind of had to do it because we're seeing what's happening in Italy and Spain and these other countries. So, yeah, you know, there's good reason for why what's happening is happening. But, you know, we are in uncharted territory here. We've gone from being a very, really free society where within reason you can kind of go out and do what the hell you like, to suddenly being in this space where we're locked down, we're not allowed to go out, we're not allowed to really hang out together. Very, very strange. And, you know, as I say, there's no real way around this. If you're looking to be active in the dating market, I mean, for me, to be honest, it's really, this is a period where you should be putting that to one side for a moment, you know, putting your aspirations to be a player to one side for a moment and thinking about monk mode, thinking about other stuff that you could be working on, you know, doing exercise at home to strengthen the body, doing reading, loads and loads of reading you can do in this period, writing, working on a business, working on whatever sort of artistic or business project that you've had in the back of your head for ages, and really focusing and doubling down on that and not worrying about the dating girl side of things so much, because that's just like, like I say, we're just in this bizarre, uncharted territory at the moment. And, there isn't a clever hack to get around it. Now, of course, some girls are still going to want to have sex. Some girls are not going to be concerned. They will come over to your place if you escalate properly on the social media app that you're on, or the dating app that you're on, and you can make that happen for sure, no doubt about it. But look, I mean, I wouldn't be. This is not the time to be thinking, right, I'm gonna 10x my player credentials right now. Do you know what I mean? This isn't the time for that. The time for that is maybe when this has started to ease off into the summer, because. Here's something else that I've been considering. What's RMPC is saying: 95% of people will stay in their pajamas, eat like it's Christmas Day, constantly checking the news and turning into a quaking ball of lard. We have the choice to do the opposite of that. Yes, that is right. We do have the choice to do the opposite, and we must take the choice to do the opposite of that. I mean, for me, I've got very mixed feelings about this whole thing. I don't like being contained. I don't like being told you've got to stay in a particular place and you can't move and you can't travel and you can't do all this stuff. I don't like it. It goes against, obviously it doesn't work in terms of my job, but it doesn't work for me personally. I don't like it. But then I have to remember, probably most other people on the planet don't like it either. I find it particularly irksome because for me, freedom and the ability to travel, the ability to move around is incredibly important. It's really one of my core values. And to have that suddenly forcibly stripped away, even though with good reason, is not something that I find very comfortable. But I just have to wear it. I just have to get used to it and get into, and start a new routine like everybody else does. And so last week, and I go up and down with this. I mean, last week I got a bit depressed about it. Then I came out of it and I thought, well, do you know what? This is an amazing opportunity for self-development. This is an amazing opportunity for me to work on all of those projects that I need to work on. I mean, I've got loads and loads of stuff to do, believe me, in terms of my my digital course. I'm going to be releasing some of my infill videos as a standalone product very soon. There's work to be done on all of these things. I've got so much to do. I could be sat in this apartment, for months, really, hardly seeing anybody and just working. And, in many ways, that's probably what I should be doing. So maybe this is actually a good thing, because as much as it's tempting to think, oh, we're coming into spring now, wouldn't it be nice to go to Budapest, or wouldn't it be nice to go to Prague, or wouldn't it be nice to go to Barcelona, or whatever? In fact, perhaps what I should be thinking, and perhaps I'm not going to claim this is some, act of God in order to make me get on with my job, because that would be ridiculous and frankly insulting to people who are suffering through this. But, perhaps this it will act as a reminder to me that I need to focus. I need to spend. And Black Dragon, the great blogger, the great men's blogger, you should definitely check out his site if you don't already. He's got some amazing stuff on there. He's a really, really great writer, great person to discuss intergender dynamics, sexuality, dating, all this kind of stuff. He says that you should spend the early part of the year in monk mode, effectively. I don't think he uses the term monk mode, but he says, you should spend certainly the first quarter of the year, you should spend working, you should spend creating, you should spend making hay in order that then, because what happens, right? What happens in a typical year? You've got Christmas is over, New Year's is over, and then we all go into January. And January is a miserable slump, and it's really cold if you're in Europe or the States or whatever. It's really cold. It's pretty miserable. There's nothing to look forward to. It's all a bit shit. Then you got February, same thing. You got Valentine's Day. Okay, well, so what? Apart from that, same thing. You got March. March is all right. But it's still pretty cold. There's still really not a lot going on. Sometimes you have Easter, but then going into April, then you have Easter. Then suddenly the year starts to wake up a bit. You've got Easter. In the UK, you've got the Easter holidays. It goes on for 4 days. It's starting to get warmer. It's starting to get sunnier. People are starting to go out more. There's more of this feeling of sort of in the air of like, wow, things are happening. And then you move towards summer. And when you hit summer, then you've got a problem. Why? because people start to go on holiday. People aren't around as much. Everything's kind of, things become more difficult to do after you've gone into spring, right? And this is kind of what Black Dragon's saying in his article. And I'll try and dig it out and put it in a link or something, because it's a good article. But he would usually do an article at the beginning of the year, giving you a bit of a pep talk about, right, you've got to focus, you've got to get on, blah. And he makes this point about the early part of the year, because then once you get into sort of spring, when the weather's nice, and then summer, when people are going on holiday, it all starts to get more difficult. People are away. It's harder to get hold of people. If you're trying to do deals, the people that you need to be in contact with, the people that you need to lock those deals down with are away. They've got things on. They've got plans. So his argument, and I agree with it, is that you want to spend that early part of the year just 100% focused, 100% like, right. And if you're self-employed, you could think a bit about it like this. You could think, well, I'm going to spend the early part of the year really making my money, or I'm going to spend the early part of the year creating my products, or filling up my inventory, or really doubling down and focusing on whatever it is that you do to bring money in. And then the rest of the year, you can not sort of like relax, but you can sort of come out of that phase of frenzied activity, that phase of monk mode, having set yourself up really well. And then perhaps you can maybe take it a little bit easier, or maybe you can travel a little bit more when you are, as you're working at the same time. This is for the self-employed dudes, by the way. I'm aware that if you are employed, then it's going to be different, because your employer is going to set your timetable, your schedule, if you like. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for this idea of Black Dragons, that you spend the early part of the year building, and then because later in the year it's going to be harder to do, people are going to be less available, and you're going to be less inclined to do it as well because the weather's better. This chap here, I can't pronounce your name, I'm afraid, but he says Monk Mode Turkey. I've got a question about Turkey, actually. What is the situation in places like Istanbul? Is it still open? Are there still people out and about on the streets? Are the cafes and the restaurants still open? Because a friend of mine earlier was saying that, I haven't looked at this, but apparently British people can still travel into Turkey at the moment. And he was thinking of going there, and he said he reckons it's all still pretty open, and it's all, it's all still happening. So I just wondered if there's any truth in that or not. I haven't checked into it yet myself. But yeah, I think monk mode at the moment is essential. If I was you, I would forget all about the idea of getting girls. I'd forget just momentarily. I'm not saying forever, but I would forget about thinking, right, this is, because there's just absolutely no point going into this bizarre period that we're in thinking, right, yeah, I'm going to smash it now on the dating scene. It's just ridiculous. What I would do, though, is if you need to brush up on your skills in this area, there's certainly ways of doing that, not least by reading my books, link below, and all of that. You can certainly study. There's certainly a lot you can do. And obviously, I'm putting out regular content on this channel. There's my Patreon, where there's additional videos and things. There's loads of material out there that you can get to study dating dynamics, dating strategy, to understand how you can become better as a seducer, as a player, whatever you want to call it. All of that is out there for sure. And you can definitely spend your time at the moment immersing yourself in that, if dating and attraction and all of that is your primary goal. And I would certainly encourage you to do that. And I'll tell you why, right? Because I am convinced, and I've been convinced since the last week, and the more that we go on, the more I 100% think this is true. And I've talked to other people about this as well, and they agree. I think what we're going to see is, when we do start to come out of this, we're going to see a tsunami of frenzied activity happening in the dating marketplace across the world. Because look, here's the reality of the situation, right? None of us want to be locked down, right? None of us want to be in this situation. I don't, but girls don't either, So it's not just me, it's not just guys. The girls don't either. And the girls 100% are getting bored already. In the UK, we are, a couple of days into this. Well, really, we're one day into the hardcore lockdown, but we are, we're not very far into being sort of in this lockdown, self-isolation period. The longer this goes on for, the more frustrated people are going to get, the more bored people are going to get, the more people are going to want to go out there and just meet other people. And quite frankly, there's going to be a lot of pent up frustration, desire, eroticism, really, within the population globally. Okay. And so what you want to do, if you are somebody who is at that phase in your life where, yes, you want to improve your dating prospects, where you want to meet new people, where you want to bring new people into your life, what you want to do is get yourself into the absolute best possible state to take advantage of that as and when it happens, because it is going to happen, and this is the thing. We can't catastrophize about this situation. Although you will read conspiracy theories, you'll see all kinds of like ideas about why this is happening, why we're seeing this global containment and everything. But all of that is basically bollocks. I mean, we are in this situation where we're dealing with this virus. Governments are doing their best to contain it, and so we are seeing these measures being introduced globally in order to prevent people from going out and intermingling. But they don't want it to carry on forever. So at some point this is going to be lifted, and frankly, it's going to be lifted sooner rather than later, because the demand from the populations is going to become such that it's going to become very difficult for governments to continue to enforce this degree of shutdown, and it's not going to work in terms of business. So we are going to see these measures lifted, and as and when the measures are lifted, and look, God, let's hope, because I don't want to underplay the seriousness of this thing. I mean, look, let's be clear. This is a serious thing. People are suffering. People are dying from this thing. This is a terrible, terrible situation, and it's causing immense strain on healthcare systems and everything else. So I don't want to underplay that for a second. And I really hope that everyone watching this and everyone who tunes in and watches it later, and their relatives and loved ones and everything, I really, really hope everybody gets through this healthily, and I hope that it passes very quickly, because we don't want to see lots and lots of people suffering from this. However, putting that to one side, putting the health side of this to one side for a second, we have to realize that this is a temporary situation, that although it might be frustrating for you, it is going to end. And so then you have to think, okay, so when I come out the other side of it, what do I want my life to look like? How do I want things to be? And people have talked about this situation as being a reset. Okay, I've seen that word used a lot, and what people tend to be talking about then is when they're talking about it in terms of the markets, and I've heard people say, well, this is the markets were due for a reset, and so this has come along, and either coincidentally or by design, this thing has come along and it's going to allow for a reset in the markets. And whether you believe that or not, whether you put any credence into that or not, is up to you. But for me, I think if the reset happens, it should be an internal reset. I think it should be a reset for you and for me. It should be a psychological reset rather than a reset of economics and things. I mean, yes, those things may happen as well, but this is an opportunity for you to reset. And here's what I mean. Think about what's now been taken away, depending on where you are. Think about how your life looks now compared to how it looked just even 2 weeks ago, for example. I mean, when I think about it, I'm looking at these flights going out of the UK. A lot of the flights are very expensive, or they're not direct. There's a few direct flights to places like Berlin, but there are other flights where you have to change, and it's going to take you like 18 hours or something to get to Berlin, which is like a 2-hour flight. I mean, it's ridiculous, In any case, the airports might get closed down at some point because the government might say, we can't allow people to keep coming in or going out, or it's whatever, And anyway, now we're in this situation where all of the bars are closed, all of the pubs are closed, restaurants are closed, everything's closed. I think the hotels are closed as well. I mean, gyms, swimming pools, everything is closed. There is nothing to do. You can't do anything. And so what does that make you think? Well, it makes you think 2 weeks ago, none of this was the case. 2 weeks ago, I could have walked out into the street. I could have been out all night partying. I could have flown to Barcelona. I could have done this. I could have done that. And I didn't do those things. And so that then has to make us grateful for what we have under normal circumstances. That has to factor into our thinking. You have to think, well, hang on a minute, actually, when normal circumstances are resumed, I've really got an amazing life. I've got amazing opportunities. I've got a fantastic ability to live life as I want. As I always say at the end of my emails, live the life you want, not the life you think you should. You've got this amazing ability, just to do what the hell you like, to travel where you like, to design the life that you want. And what we should all do is spend this time thinking, okay, how do I want that life to look? What do I want that life to be about? Do I want it to just be, sitting around in a room in the city where you were born? Do I want to just be working that same 9 to 5 job where the boss is, giving me shit the whole time and I'm not really being properly remunerated for my work, where I'm not respected, all that kind of stuff? Do I want to spend the rest of my life doing something that I dislike? And if the answer to that is no, then surely this has to be a situation where you evaluate all of that. I mean, this is a wake-up call for all of us, because it's highlighting exactly the opportunities that we normally do have. By taking those opportunities away temporarily, we're being reminded of the amazing opportunities that we do have. And I mean, I speak for myself here as much as anybody else. I've been as guilty as anybody of squandering those opportunities at times. I mean, there were many things that I could have done. Cheers. There are many things that I could have done in terms of travel and stuff like that I haven't done for various reasons, because I've ended up just being a bit lazy and staying in London or whatever. Well, now we can see how easily those freedoms can be taken away from us. Now we see how unexpectedly, but how quickly a situation can escalate, so that our opportunities to do those wonderful things that we were able to do before is just ripped away from us. And we don't know at the moment when it's going to be returned. We don't know when normal service is going to be resumed. And man, I mean, that has got to factor into your thinking, surely. I mean, it certainly does with me. I'm certainly now thinking, well, wow, it's really brought into sharp relief. It's a little bit like, how people say, imagine this was the last day of your life. Imagine this was the last day, you were on the planet. How would you live your life, kind of thing? And that's a cool thing to say. It's a cool sort of mental exercise to do. But something like this, it really brings it home to you, because this is real. This is a real situation that's happening now. We can't control it. And yeah, that certainly really makes me think. And I mean, look, here's the thing, right? It's not all negative, actually. It's not all negative, because I did an email before to my email subscriber list. And if you're not on that, do subscribe below, because I send out a free article Monday to Friday, little article talking about obviously this stuff, also dating, seduction skills, charisma, all that kind of thing. So get on the email list below. But yeah, I mean, I was writing an email about this earlier, and I was saying, well, how do we remain positive in this situation when, to be frank, we are being bombarded with bad news? I mean, I watch the TV in the morning, I look on Twitter. I'm not seeing a lot of good news. I mean, there's a few things. There are a few indicators. Obviously, it seems like the situation in China has been improving. Apparently, the rate of growth of this in Italy is falling. There seems to be some glimmers of hope. South Korea was doing quite well. But yeah, in general, we're being bombarded with very bad news. So how do you stay positive? And I think one way to stay positive is to count your blessings, is to look at, what you've got at the moment. We'll talk about that in a second, but just think right now, what have I got that's positive? But the other thing to do is to kind of get excited about the fact that this is going to end. And when this ends, how are you going to live your life? Because Because then, when this does come to an end, you're going to have that opportunity. You're going to have that opportunity to go, right, okay, now I see the value of what was taken away from me during that period in early 2020. Now I see what I could have been doing all of this time. And what are you going to do then? Are you just going to carry on? Are you just going to carry on with the same path? The same lack of ambition, the same lack of courage, if you like, the same lethargy? Or are you going to say, sod all of that, I am now going to go and live my life the way that I want to live it, because I see now how brief this existence is, and I see now how easily the freedoms that I think I'm entitled to can be taken away from me. So there's a lot of food for thought, but in a way, it's quite a positive thing, as I say. In a way, there's a positivity about it, because it allows us to do that reset. It allows us to think about what we really want, and to make sure this time that we go for it when we've got the opportunity. Our friend in Turkey says it's not total lockdown in Turkey at the moment, but bars, shops, etc. are closed. Okay, well, I don't know how that's gonna go over there, but I mean, it seems like we're seeing lockdown kind of coming everywhere, really. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see total lockdown over there as well. Has anyone got any questions? If you've got any questions or anything you want me to address, put them in the comments. If you've got any questions about dating during this period, about day game, about game, I mean, or indeed business, having a personal brand, creating anti-fragility, any questions at all, put them down in the live chat, and I will do my best to get round to them, because I want to be interactive with this. Do you know what I mean? I can talk for the rest of the night, but you don't necessarily want to listen to that. So do let me know if there's anything you want me to cover. I think anti-fragility is another aspect of all of this that I believe is important, because in some ways, would I say I was lucky in the current position that I'm in? I don't know, really. It's funny, isn't it? I mean, people have been talking a lot about work online, on Twitter and elsewhere, because obviously the economy is now a big factor in this, right? And some would argue that actually the economy could be the biggest factor in all of this. We're already seeing, well, all of these businesses are being closed down, forced to close down for this period of time. Got all of these service sector businesses being closed down. How are people going to carry on making money, etc.? And there's a huge knock-on effect. Now in the UK, they're doing quite a good sort of like support package, where the government is helping with employers to pay wages. They're sort of trying to keep everything afloat. There's help with mortgages. There's all this kind of stuff going on. There's all these initiatives going on. And that's really good. And I think in the States, you've got some other stuff that they're trying to do there. I know, the Trump dollars that hopefully guys are going to get soon, the $1,000 or whatever he's sending out to everyone. You're hopefully going to see soon. So, look, governments are printing money probably, but they're stepping up to the plate in order to try and support people. So that's good for the time being. But look, I mean, ultimately, this is a bad situation economically as well as from the health side of things. So what does that mean for you if you're self-employed? So I spent a lot of 2017, I suppose, talking about being self-employed. I spent a lot of time talking about being somebody who has a personal brand. And what I meant by that was somebody who kind of does what I do, which is drink coffee online. Somebody like me who, you post content online, you have products that you can then sell to people, like books or courses or whatever, and you make a living through that. And I was really strongly arguing for that in 2017, and I did a course, which you can still get. I'll put the link somewhere, but it's called Personal Brand Mastery. And it teaches you how to build a course and how to build a personal brand online and how to monetize it. And I went really big on that stuff for a while. And yeah, and I still, I mean, that's kind of how I make a living. It's how a lot of people that I'm friends with, I work with, make a living. They basically they talk about a subject, like I talk a lot about dating and the sexual marketplace and so on, but I talk about some other stuff as well. You create a presence online, you have then people that are interested in what you have to say, and you're able to sell stuff to them. And I was arguing that guys should take this up for lots and lots of different reasons. Partly because you can make money from it. But you can certainly make as much as you can from a corporate job, and you can probably make more from it depending on where you take it. I mean, the sky's the limit, really. There are guys who make a shed load of money from doing this, and also it gives you that opportunity to be free to travel. I mean, I was influenced, like many people, by the 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. Was one of the first books really that came out talking about this stuff in detail, and that's kind of the template that I've taken, really. This idea that you create an online business and then you can travel and you can do anything you want at the same time as working. So what would I say now in the face of coronavirus? I gave up. I was in a corporate job until 2017. My dates mixed up here. I think I meant 2018, actually. I went big talking about personal branding. 2017, I was still in my corporate job until the end of the year, and I gave up the corporate job. Should I have done that? Was that a mistake, given the current situation? I don't think it was, because what I really like about self-employment and what I really like about being your own boss, being a free agent in that sense, is that you can do what you want to do in the business as well as in your life. Okay, so I can, I get up in the morning and I create my content. I do videos, I do Twitter, I'll do whatever it is. I'll write a book, I'll do whatever I'm doing. Spend all that time creating that content, but I can steer the ship where I want it to go. So I could make a decision and say, well, okay, I tell you what, for the time being, while this is going on, if I'm going to see sales dipping over here, then why don't I do this other thing over here that's going to create me more income? So as a very obvious example of that, I do from time to time do in-person training where I'm working with clients face-to-face, and we're going out and we're getting into social situations, meeting different girls and things like that, and I'm helping them to improve in that arena. Now, obviously, right now, there isn't a market for that because you can't talk to anybody, and you certainly can't go near to anybody. Otherwise, you'll probably get arrested and thrown in jail. So the market has completely gone from that. Now, if I was employed by a company to do that, and that's unlikely because you don't really have companies these days that that do that. Maybe he did in the earlier 2000s. But say, for example, my employer was a corporate company and that was my job. I would be screwed because my job suddenly has become in a very real sense, my job has become, invalid. That job doesn't exist anymore. But because I'm self-employed, I could just say, okay, right, fine. We're not doing the live stuff at the moment, but obviously I've got the books. Renegade Dating Blueprint, link below. Please do pick up your copy. It's only $39. Ka-ching. I'm joking. It's really good. It's good value. I can spend more time on the digital products. I can spend more time creating the books, etc., etc. So I move my focus of attention into an area where I can still generate revenue. And the problem when you're employed in a company is that they don't tend to be that nimble. They certainly don't tend to, just change your job description overnight, because if one thing's become not profitable at the moment. And so you're kind of screwed. And so many companies at the moment are going to have problems as a result of what's happening, and it's not just the obvious ones. So you've got the obvious frontline companies at the moment, like for example here, all of the bars, restaurants, and theatres have had to close down. So they're going to have a problem because they haven't got customers coming through the doors because the doors are locked, and so there's no revenue. And so what are they going to do? So that's one thing. But what about the knock-on effects of that? What about the accountants that look after their accounts? How long are those guys going to be able to stay in business for? What about if they have lawyers who work for them on certain things? If there's nothing coming through, there's nothing to do, those secondary people are going to be affected as well. The career that I was in before was advertising. So advertising, was used to be a very well-paid kind of an industry. Less so now for various reasons. But you see, advertising is dependent on the health of the economy, because we used to carry a lot of advertising from car manufacturers, from retail, from shops, from manufacturers of different kinds, say electronics manufacturers and all this kind of stuff. Well, if the shops are closed, if people aren't buying TVs, if people aren't really buying cars at the moment, then they're going to slash their advertising budgets. And so if you work in advertising, you're also going to be affected. So there's this knock-on effect economically to all of these things because of the coronavirus, or because of an event like this. You're going to see this knock-on effect. Now, the great thing about being self-employed, you don't have the stability of that monthly income check. And I mean, my income fluctuates quite a lot. For example, November, December was really, really good. Very, very, very strong months. January was pretty good. February was okay. And then, we come into now, and obviously at the moment, I'm taking a bit of a hit. But as I said, the beauty of it is that I can shift my focus around. So, and look, if I wanted to, I could write a book on gardening tomorrow. I could be like Troy Francis's Guide to Gardening. If gardening suddenly became a big thing because the supermarkets have got less stock and everybody's like, shit, I need to get into gardening. In theory, I could just do a gardening book. I could move my operation into talking about something totally different if I wanted to. And that is a massive advantage that you have as somebody who's self-employed. You have the ability to change course depending on what's happening out there, and you can do it very quickly. I could start my Troy Francis Guide to Gardening tonight. After this video conference, I could this live stream. I could say, right, I'm going to start writing that gardening book. I could start doing it. I could do some Facebook ads. I could do some videos about gardening, and all of a sudden, I've got a new revenue stream, and that happens very, very quickly. And you don't have that luxury when you are working for a company, because for a start, larger companies tend to, it takes longer to turn the ship. And secondly, they might just say, well, listen, Troy, you've been great talking about the dating stuff, but we're going to get a gardening expert in now, so we're going to let you go. If they wanted to shift towards gardening. So, there are huge opportunities. Not opportunities, that's the wrong word. There are huge advantages of self-employment. And so, in spite of the fact that, there is uncertainty, there is also great opportunity as well. The other thing that I would say is the beauty of working online, of having like an online business, is that your customer base is worldwide. I'm selling books to a lot of people in the United States because that's, I guess, the biggest online market. But, I sell books to people all over the world. Loads and loads of countries all around the world. People in Russia, people in Poland, people in Germany. So I'm not constrained. I'm not sort of tied to one market. So say the UK has a massive recession as a result of what's happening. Obviously that's going to affect me in some ways, but I'm not reliant on the UK market. Even if the US has a massive recession, that's going to affect me, and that's going to affect me more because the majority of my sales come from the US. But it is mitigated to some extent because I'm also selling in all of these other places as well. So, yeah, you just have to. There are a lot of possibilities with self-employment, and I would still absolutely say it's just to be nimble, to be agile. It's a really, really good place to be, even when we find ourselves in a situation like this, and perhaps more so. Because if I was in a corporate job, it would be quite easy to be let go at the moment for some spurious reason. And you don't fire yourself. Like however bad an employee I am, I'm not going to fire myself. So, anyway, something to think about. Mark Gordon says, should you trash your online dating accounts and let the algorithm reset and start fresh accounts when the beer bug clears? Do you mean after the coronavirus clears? You could do that, but it depends really. I mean, if you've got it depends. If you've got a problem with your online accounts at the moment, then you could do that. The only thing that I would say to be a bit careful about is that apparently, if I've been told, because I was working with a guy the other day who knows quite a lot about this stuff, and he told me that if you use the same photos in your new account, the algorithm will pick up on that and you can get punished for that. So if you are going to do it, try to use entirely new photographs and just change everything so that it doesn't in any way resemble the old account, because otherwise you might find yourself getting penalized. I'm not 100% on that, but that's what I've been told. So do be careful about that. But I don't know, really. I mean, it just depends how you're doing at the moment. If you're doing all right at the moment, then why change it? If you're not, then yes, that's something you could consider doing. But what I would say is that why not use this period as an opportunity to create more contacts? Why not use this period for pipelining? So even if you're not getting these girls to come out on dates with you, even if you're not meeting up physically, at least start to bring them into your pipeline, at least start to bring them into your world. Get them off the dating app onto WhatsApp so that you're chatting, start having flirty, like, backwards and forwards banter. Because look, we don't know when this thing's going to lift, but it's going to lift at some point, and then you want to have some options that are available that you can go to when the time is right. Okay, so yeah, use this time wisely to create those contacts, because look, at the moment everyone's just sitting at home bored. These girls are just sitting at home bored out of their minds, haven't got anything to do. A little bit of flirtation, a little bit of intriguing. Everyone likes that, so tap into that. You can make it. It's a good time. It's a good time to be creating new contacts for sure. So this So Zach Hinson says, "How to Be an Arsehole, great book. Weird question, but what do you think a psychopath would wear?" Well, maybe if you watch American Psycho, you should have a look at that, because his he obviously Christian Bale as Patrick Bateman is very stylish, well, in a sort of 80s kind of a way. I think the thing with psychopaths, right, is that as we know, psychopaths come in all different shapes and sizes. So it's not just one particular type. It's not just the Wall Street banker. It's not just the dude who's, I don't know, who's working construction. It's like, from all sectors of society, anybody could be a psychopath underneath the surface, and you're not necessarily going to know. So I wouldn't necessarily say there's any one thing that you could wear that would be what a psychopath would wear. However, what's kind of interesting about American Psycho, and what's interesting about that book, is how obsessed he is with his personal appearance. And if you remember the film, you'll remember him putting on the face mask and the eye mask and all that kind of stuff, and his moisturizers and all that. And he's obviously got these expensive designer suits, etc. So I think what that indicates is, perhaps, this is probably veering into narcissism a little bit more, perhaps, but it certainly behooves you to, whatever your personal style is, to dress well, to look like you're into yourself, to look like you're a bit of a narcissist. And that's, I like wearing jackets, suit jackets. I like wearing shirts. I like a slightly more formal kind of way of dress, if you like, because and I think the impression that makes, or the impression that I sort of want it to make, is that I am somebody who's a bit narcissistic, a bit arrogant, a bit overly concerned with my own appearance, and that is signaling to people that I come into contact with that perhaps I have some of that dark triad side to me. Do you know what I mean? Because if you're just the dude who turns up in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, and you've got your gut hanging over your belt, sort of thing, and the what we call in England the builder's bum, which is like, at the back when you can see that the top of their arse crack, and they're just like, yeah, fucking hell, love. If you present like that, then not only does it not look very good from a style point of view, but also it doesn't. What does it say about you? It says you're not that arsed about yourself. And for me, the psychopath generally tends to be somebody who is has a very high opinion of themselves. And as I say, there is crossover with narcissism here, but I hope you see what I'm saying. So I think you want to, whatever style you decide to pursue, you want to look like you've thought about it. You want to look like you are into yourself, because that's going to send, I think, the right signals. And then you have to tell me how to pronounce your name. Sorry, sir. Is it Omar? Omar Onat, I think. Omar. How do we improve our online game skills? Online market is swarmed with AFCs. Well, there's a lot written about online game. There's a lot talked about it. I think in the end, it is very much a question of numbers, and I'm sorry to say that. I know people don't want to hear that. People, you want the magic answer. I do think, just by the nature of it, you need to be obviously swiping a lot. You need to be matching a lot of people. I've talked a lot about Joe Lampton's book, Obsessed, recently. It's a very, very good book. Very short, but very, very good book about some pretty hardcore dark triad type dating techniques, if you like. And in that book, Joe Lampton, who does a lot of Instagram game, he talks about messaging 40 girls a day on Instagram. So what he will do is he's in the city, whatever city he's in, he will find the cool venues. He'll follow a bunch of girls off those associated with those venues, and then he'll just start messaging them. And he'll message like up to 40 a day, which is a huge number. And the way that he does it is that he'll look at their stories, he'll see what they're doing, and then he'll make some cocky, funny kind of remark based on their story in order to try and get their attention. And and so numbers, very important. As much as we don't want to think that, it is important, particularly in the online space, because you need to give yourself the best possible chance. Beyond that, you need to not be like the basic average chode. And that means like in real life, that means being a bit cocky and a bit funny and a bit irreverent and not putting her on the pedestal. So what Joe Lampton describes is he'll see a story when she's out of the club and he'll say, "Oh, you didn't invite me. Right, you lose points for that, bad girl." Or he'll see her cooking and he'll be like, "Oh, when are you not cooking for me? Well, bad girl, you've lost points." Something like that. He's immediately from the off, he's putting himself in the position or in the role of the selector rather than the one to be selected. And that's kind of what you need to do. You need to, every message you send, every response you send to whatever she says back, you need to think, how can I make this more cocky? How can I make this more funny? And how can I make this a little bit sexual as well? And it sounds creepy when I say that, but what I mean is, I suppose flirty is a better word. It's like, right, whatever she comes back with, whatever she says, how can I make this a little bit flirty? How can I add some spice to this? Do you know what I mean? Particularly in the early stages of the interaction. And even when it goes on for a period of time, and what you might find at the moment is that you get into what's called long game with some of these girls, where you make a connection with somebody through social media or through a dating app, and you have to sort of keep chatting to her and keep the thing going over a longer period of time, because you're not going to meet up with her in the immediate future. So what are you going to do? And with that, you also have to try to ensure that it remains flirty. It remains a little bit exciting. It doesn't fall into this quagmire of just being boring chit chat. You've got to keep it exciting. You've got to keep it a little bit naughty. You want it to be like she looks forward to your messages, because you're the bad boy little secret in the background that's keeping her sort of like keeping her on the hook during this quarantine period. At the same time, of course, you don't want to just be like an emotional tampon for her, or you don't just want to be some hanger-on who's giving her attention. So here's the thing, right? Guys will often say, and they're absolutely right, don't just give her free attention. Who was saying this the other day? John from Modern Life Dating was saying this on the webinar I was on yesterday. So don't just give her free attention. And he's right. Don't, and so what you should be doing under normal circumstances is moving it forward towards a date. So you're chatting to her on the social media. You're like, "You look like a bad girl. I'm not sure if I can trust you. I'm such an innocent English dude. I know you're going to be trouble, blah, blah, blah." And then you want to move it to the date. Then you're saying, "Okay, so how about drinks Wednesday night, 7 p.m., blah, blah, blah." If she says yes, proceed to the next stage. If she says no, okay, well, she's relegated, and in the end, you cut it off because you don't want to get in some long drawn out thing where you are just giving her basically free attention. But we are currently in a very strange situation where it might not be possible to meet up with people for a period of time just because of the circumstances, because of the, whatever the lockdown situation you're facing. So currently, with what's going on, I'd say you're going to have to gamble on it a little bit. You're going to have to keep these conversations going for a little bit longer, and it's 100% possible. I mean, in my life, I have, I have say met a girl in a city in 2018, and I've kept the conversation going for a year or something like that before meeting up with her and finally, us getting together. If you make a good enough impression at the start, then, she's still going to be into you. And then when it's convenient for you guys to meet up, then the sparks are going to fly and things are going to happen. But you need to sort of keep it on the boil. So I think volume solves a lot of problems, right? If you're getting fixated on one particular girl and you're giving her loads of attention, then that's the wrong frame. If you're chatting to lots of girls and you're sort of keeping those plates spinning, you're keeping them on the hook, but you're not taking it too seriously, you're not being too reverent towards them, you're sort of making it clear by the way that you speak that you think highly of yourself, that you're probably a bit of a player, then that's good, and then as soon as it becomes, as soon as some of these restrictions start to lift, you push for a date. And if the dates aren't forthcoming, you relegate them or you end up blocking and deleting. So yeah, I think given the current circumstances, you're going to have to risk a little bit that you're entertaining them, because you sort of are. That's the other thing. In a period like this, when she can't go out and you can't go out, and you're sending her cheeky messages the whole time, then yes, you kind of are entertaining her a little bit. You are being a bit of a dancing monkey. But we are in a very unique situation. So it doesn't mean that you're not then going to be able to meet up with her as soon as the restrictions are lifted. So the circumstances are slightly different at the moment, but just be mindful. If it takes experience, right? Do you know what I mean? You've got to sort of gauge. You've got to learn to gauge if she's actually into you or not, if you feel like she's actually invested into this. As I say, again, volume, because the inexperienced dude is going to get a couple of like quite pleasant messages off some girl, and he's going to be like, oh my God, she loves me. Oh my God, when we're together, that she's going to be my perfect 10, and it's going to be brilliant. And she might just be stringing him along. So particularly if you're less experienced, you need to be talking to several girls at the same time to mitigate that, okay? Because say you were talking to 10 girls, 50% of those are going to fall off. They're not going to. It's not going to come to anything. Depending on the circumstances how you met, but let's just say they were randoms that you met online. A lot of those aren't going to come off. Nothing's going to happen. Some of them are. Are they going to come on the date? But it's not necessarily going to go any further. So you need to build up you need to build up your Rolodex, as we used to say in the 80s, of contacts, and keep moving them through the process. And some of them, is going to come to fruition, and many of them aren't. And you just have to learn to be okay with that, because that's how the game works. Okay, Psychedelic Cyanide says, Rollo talks about the bar of entry being very low right now. Would you agree it's better to acquire a STEM skill, then assume your opinion as a influencer matters? I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Is it worth acquiring? Is it worth being qualified for STEM? Yeah, probably. If that's what you want to do, definitely. When you say, give me a bit more detail. When you say the bar of entry low, do you mean employment-wise, or are you actually? Wait a minute, you're talking about being an influencer, aren't you? You're talking about being an online figure, I think. The bar to entry is very low. That's right. And yes, he is rightly critical of people who just just open a Twitter account, just open a YouTube account, and start talking BS. And I mean, yes, the bar is very low, but that doesn't mean there isn't the opportunity to do it well. That doesn't mean there isn't the opportunity to have something else to bring to market, whether that's your personality, whether that's your entertaining. You've got new ideas. You just engage with people. I mean, so as low as the bar may be, the bar is not low for doing it well. The bar is actually quite high for doing it well. Because if you look at the people who've got really big accounts, I mean, like the people like Rich Cooper, who's got 200,000 YouTube subscribers, and I am nowhere near in that space at all. So I'm, I have to pay my deference to him, and indeed to Rollo and all these people. So yes, the bar is very low to having a YouTube channel and going on YouTube and talking crap. But the bar to becoming Rich Cooper with entrepreneurs in cars is pretty high, and you've got to be good, and you've got to be consistent, and you've got to have something to say, and you've got to relate to people. So yeah, I mean, just do what you want to do. I mean, if you want to do STEM, sure. If you want to be a content creator, then do that, but try to make it authentic. Try to have something to say. Try to be somebody who wants to make a difference rather than just somebody who wants to make a quick buck. I think you said, which is better ROI, do you believe? Well, I don't know really. I mean, if you do STEM, you're going to get into a solid career where you can make good money. Okay. So I would never dissuade anybody from doing that if that's your sphere of interest, if that's what you want to do. Having said that, if you become somebody who does content online, if you have a personal brand, you can make very, very good money, because I know people, and I make okay money, and I'm relatively new into certainly YouTube, and I know people who aren't that much further ahead than me who make very, very, very good money. I mean, we're talking decent money, and they have their own schedule. That they do kind of what they want, they love doing it, etc., etc. So it depends what your aptitude for risk is, I suppose, because the potential for having your own business, the potential for being a personal brand person, influencer, whatever you want to call it, is very, very high. You can make really good money because you're running a business, and in theory, you've got a worldwide audience. But how many people become Rich Cooper? How many people get 200,000 subscribers on YouTube? I mean, it's quite small. So, it's down to personal preference. If I was you, if you're in a position where you are sort of contemplating whether to go into college and study STEM, and that option is open to you, and you're not going to get into massive debt and stuff, I would probably say go along with that, because the great thing about doing content as an influencer is you can do that on the side. You can do that in your spare time. You can build that up, and then you can then make the decision which way to go when you get to the end of it. So I think both of them can have great ROI. But obviously having your own personal brand is just more risky just by the nature of it. Karen Took the Kid says, my sub feed on mobile has been down on mobile all day. Not sure if anyone else has seen this issue. Not sure about that. I don't know if anyone else has mentioned that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes. Exactly. I mean, a lot of this stuff, it comes down to personal preference. I mean, I would say. I mean, here's the thing for me, right? I didn't do STEM. That wasn't my thing. I was in a commercial job in an industry that I mean, actually, I was pretty interested in, and it's kind of akin to not. There are some connections even with what I'm doing now. So it wasn't terrible, but I didn't particularly like working for other people. I didn't like a lot of the office politics. It wasn't something I was passionate about. And so for me, it's a bit of a no-brainer to try to do my own thing, because when you weigh them up, it's like, well, okay, I can earn X amount here, and that can be okay. But here, I could earn potentially I could earn a shed load more, and it's more enjoyable, and it gives me freedom in my life. So from that perspective, as soon as I was able to make the transition, I did it, and that makes sense for me. If you're talking about something like STEM, and particularly if that's something you're passionate about, if that's an area that you're really into, then you should certainly go for that, because Because yes, that's a great career, but you know, it's down to what, how you want your life to look, your aptitude for risk. I would always say mitigate, right? I mean, because I was doing blogging and I was creating content for many years, or several years anyway, when I was still employed, and then I was able to make the jump as the money from the content started to come up, and as there were problems in the commercial industry, the corporate industry I was working in, you know, it started to be like, right, okay, well, now's the time to make the jump. But if I hadn't started building the brand in the background, then it would have been much harder for me to make that jump. So I would say with any sort of career, you know, or any sort of area of study, yeah, go along with the societal, you know, go along with what your parents are sort of telling you to do, go along with the thing that seems on paper like a good idea, if you've got that opportunity, because why not? But just work on the content in the background. And if the content and your online career as an influencer seems to be starting to pick up some traction, then you can look at it then and make that decision. Cool. Okay, right. Listen, we've been on for an hour and 5 minutes now, so I'm going to leave it there for today. It was a bit of a random one today. I mean, I sort of went around a few topics. I was going to talk about conspiracies, actually, and I didn't even really get around to that. I was going to talk a bit about the QAnon stuff that people are talking about at the moment. Maybe we can talk about that another day. But, yeah, I mean, anyway, stay safe, guys. Do try to use this period for self-improvement of some kind. I certainly am, and actually, as dire as the situation is in many ways, there's also a lot of good to be said about this. As I say, it's a real opportunity for a reset in terms of your attitude to life, what you want to do. It's a real opportunity to brush up on skills. It's a real opportunity to go into monk mode and work really hard. And hopefully, right, fingers crossed, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but just imagine we come out of this towards the summer and the weather's getting really good and the travel restrictions start to lift and then it's summer and people are starting to be freed up again. I mean, how awesome is that time going to be, right? That's, you know, if that happens, that's going to be amazing. So I think we just need to keep the faith at the moment, get our heads down, work on, you know, do a bit of monk mode, and then just get ready for that period when we're going to come out of this and things are going to be better. And then we can reap the rewards, right? That's how I'm looking at it anyway. And I'm also just trying to count my blessings for the stuff that I do have. You know, I've got a roof over my head. I've got an internet connection. I've got hundreds of books online and everything to read. I've got friends. I mean, there's so many good things that I've still got in my life, regardless of what's going on. And I think you need to just keep those things in mind. So look, grab Renegade Dating Blueprint. It's 11 of my books in a bundle. You can get it below on the link. It's worth $250, so well worth getting at the moment. I'm keeping it at that price, particularly through this. We'll have to review it at some stage, so do get on board with that. Please do subscribe to my YouTube channel so you're kept up to date with all my latest content. The link is below. You can get into my VIP members group on Patreon as well. So the link is below for that also. Have a look at that. There's a couple of different tiers with different offerings and stuff, but you get a couple of extra videos a week. And on the top tier, you get a video conference call once a month and all these different things. So have a look at that also. And yeah, just, you know, stay strong, stay focused, use this time to the best of your possible, you know, the best possible ability that you have. And we will speak again very soon. Bye-bye.